Hello, welcome to Doors to Hope and Healing, an inside look at foster care and adoption needs in Connecticut. My name is Jacqueline Ford. I am humbled and honored to have worked for the Department of Children and Families for close to 30 years. And although I may be familiar with many of the topics I bring to you, I am inviting experts in those fields to share their knowledge. It was nearly 27 years ago when Vannessa Dorantes was hired by the Department of Children and Families as a social worker trainee. And today, I am honored to have her here in her role as Commissioner. Hello, Commissioner.
Hello. Happy Social Work Appreciation Month.
Yes, it is. We're at the tail end of that, and we were able to celebrate some of our social workers who were kids in care in one of our previous segments. So
I watched. They were fantastic.
Good, good, good. And it's so great to have you here. I appreciate that. You're so busy, and I value any bit of time that we can have with you. I think it was our young 22-year-old kids that we were when we first started at this agency so many years ago, and it's an honor to have you lead us now.
Thanks.
So we're just going to have a conversation for our viewers to talk about your vision and have some questions that we would like to ask you, so I'm going to get started.
Great, thanks.
Why did you become a social worker? Is it something that you always wanted to do?
Actually, no. I went to undergrad as a psychology major, and you have that. You ended the segment with the social workers with a quote from Mr. Rogers, and one of the Mr. Rogers quotes that I love is, when there is tragedy, look for the helpers. And I always kind of knew that I wanted to be a helper, but I didn't really know. At 20, 19, or however old you are when you're picking a college major, you don't really know what that's going to manifest in or what it's going to look like. And in my senior year, I believe, I took a social work course as an elective, and an employee of the Department of Children and Youth Services at the time came and talked about what DCYS was. And it was at that moment that I realized that sounds like and that feels like what I want to do. It was right at the time that the department had just been sued by a group of people who felt that the department wasn't delivering services in the way that they should. And so, unbeknownst to me at the time, you and I, were part of the first wave of social workers that were hired to kind of mitigate the deficits that the department had at the time. And so, yeah, that was 27 years ago. And that person, Patty Zuccarelli, who came to talk to our class, ended up being my first training supervisor and kind of as a mentor throughout my career at DCF. But so I don't think that I said one day I want to grow up and be a social worker, but it evolved to that from watching CPTV and Mr. Rogers and really understanding what it means for a community to help its citizens.
So it was Patty Zuccarelli that came to your class. Boy, life has really come full circle.
It certainly has, yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. Is there anything in your personal background growing up here in Connecticut that led you to this field?
It's funny because when you are a child or even a teenager, you're just living your life and you don't realize how much all of those things become building blocks for the professional that you end up becoming. And so right now, since I've been in this role, I've been pretty reflective and thinking back to the fact that my parents were teens when they had me, and I very well could have been in the child protective system at that time because of their ages. However, there was a community of people that rallied around them, my grandparents, maternal and paternal side, to lean in and to help them be successful. So my mom was able to go on to college, and my dad went on to the Navy. And so, like when my dad came back, he was able to have a career in telecommunications, and my mom had a wonderfully successful career as a teacher. But I think kinship care, as we now know it, was gave me the vehicle to be able to be in this seat, but also allowed my family to be good and successful and grow, and not be challenged by the things that sometimes will create stumbling blocks for folks.
Sure, and years ago that was a big deterrent. Being a young teen, I have that similar experience with my own mom, and if it wasn't for your family who stepped up to help raise us, our grandmothers, I know we're both had very fond relationships with our grandparents, we wouldn't be able to be successful. So can we talk about all the different things that you've done at DCF since you started as a young trainee?
Oh boy, yeah. I came in as a trainee, I carried a caseload of in-home and out-of-home families. I went on to be an ongoing services social worker. I spent the bulk of my career in DCF in investigations, did some special investigations of the critical incidences. I did some sexual abuse in high-risk cases, high-risk newborns. I went on to become an investigation supervisor, an investigations program supervisor. From there, I was an office director, and then from office director, I was appointed to a regional administrator just prior to this role.
And has your career always been in the same region of the state?
Yeah, so I started out in the Waterbury office, and I evolved to having the Waterbury catchment area, which also included the 42 towns between Danbury, Torrington, and Waterbury. The towns up to the Massachusetts border and over to the New York border was my catchment area before this particular position.
And I understand you teach at Central, or you were teaching at Central as an adjunct professor. Can you talk about that?
So, you know, we often in the social work field have to give students field experiences. And so I started as a field supervisor for students who were coming to do some real life, everyday experiences in the department. And from then, I had an opportunity to teach a course. And I loved it. And I recognized that being in the classroom was where I felt most comfortable. So I've taught for, oh my goodness, about 14 years, core and elective social work classes, the core competencies that laid the foundation for what social workers do on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily all within DCF, you know, because social workers cross many fields, particularly in human services. And I have students that are, you know, in fields that sometimes come into the child welfare realm, but other areas of practice that social workers find themselves in.
So do you feel that those 14 years of being a professor and also all of the different facets of the agency that you had experience working in and leading has helped to prepare you for this role as commissioner?
It's funny because this is not a seat that I aspire to. You know, at 22, if someone were to say you were going to be the commissioner of the department, I would say that that's absolutely not something that I think that I'm prepared to do. At that time, of course, at 22, I wasn't. Sure. But now looking back, and you know, even at the point at which this was starting to take shape, my husband actually said to me, even though this is not a seat that you've aspired to, every day of your career has led you to this seat. And so that couldn't be more true. Every intervention, every conversation with a provider, every drive to a family's house, every late night, every early morning, every, you know, all of the ups and downs that come with this profession led me to the preparation for the role of commissioner.
I'm sure it has. Well, speaking as one of the social workers who you will be leading, I definitely think that all of your experience, you know, you are one of us, you were one of us. So I believe that all of that is going to help you guide us because you've done the work, you've been there. What are your goals for the new administration?
So again, that's a question that a lot of folks have been asking, because I think with any transition or with any new administration, people think that you're just going to come in and shake it like a snow globe. That's not me. Everything that the department is today and everything that we will be is made up of the fabric of all of its people. Every single day that I've spent in the department makes who I am today, but then everything that everybody does who works for the department make up the fabric of where we are today as a department. So for me to come in and say, I want to change that, means that I'm going to be taking apart what I am and what we've contributed to it. So I've looked at this experience as an opportunity to look at what the best practices are that we've learned from over the years. Are there things in other jurisdictions that we can borrow and adapt to Connecticut, but also forge new experiences and new practices that we can build upon the foundation that we've all set. Have we always gotten it all right? No, but we've done pretty much the best we can at the time with the information and resources that we have. And so I won't be throwing away any of that stuff, but building on it.
That's great. And you have a process in place of doing it slowly, or are you looking to do it all at once, the changes?
So, yeah, I didn't want to be wedded to the way we always did business. You know, I felt and I knew that because I've had 27 years with the department, that there would be a tendency to default to what I know. And this work is way too important for that. kids too important for complacency or even, mediocrity. So what I've decided to do is pull together a team of internal and external experts to do an organizational assessment. I have used some technical assistance from the Harvard Kennedy School Government Performance Improvement Lab, and also with Casey Family Programs to kind of allow us to pull from other jurisdictions, but also look at, one, the structure of our agency to see if we are aligned to make sure that the structure of who we are and our infrastructure fits the goals that we're trying to achieve, and then think about those functions. And then after that, who we have within the department to fill those particular roles. So it's a very purposeful and methodical process.
Which leads me to my next question. We know that your favorite phrase is purposeful pride and passion for people in practice.
All of the P's.
All the P's. Can you explain what you mean by that and why that's so important to you?
Yeah, I love this work. You love this work, that's why we're still here. And so when I think about this work, the thing that makes me happy to come to work every day is that we come for a purpose. We come to work with families and with communities, and I want to make sure that the staff at our job understands the enormity of that responsibility. That's where the pride comes in, that if we work at this job and we do so from this place of really genuine concern for the families that we work with, there's pride in that. A lot of times you don't see the success stories, you see the things that make the headlines when outcomes are not favorable or they're not what we would have expected or what are even good for kids and families. But there's hundreds and thousands of kids who have come through our system that are doing really well as a result of people who work really hard, very purposeful, directed, and have pride in what they do. That pride and passion for this work has to come from inside out. And so that's where the last P in terms of people, the people within the department, across central office, across our facilities, through our regions, having respect for each other and all of our various functions, and then how we administer that pride in the work towards our partners in the community, our providers, and with families that we work with within the context of their communities. So all those P's really do fit together to demonstrate that we are a department that, one, can't and should not be doing this by ourselves, that we do this from a place of good intentions, and that we definitely want to see people in a better place than sometimes the crisis that brought them to our attention.
There are a few things that you want the public to know, and is there some, for our viewers watching now, what type of message do you want to get out to the public about your new role and your vision for our department?
The message to the public is not going to come from words. It's going to be how they see us do our work. People know when you're authentic. They know when you're genuine, and they know when you're really here to help. And I want to give our staff the permission to be able to do that. You saw the young ladies that sat here with lived experience talk about what it's like to interact with families. And I want our staff to feel that comfort level again, to have people understand that when they're knocking at their door in their lowest possible moment, that sometimes, you don't want the state to come in and ask you questions about that. And the defenses that sometimes come across really are a cry for help. And our social workers have to be able to be given permission to enter into those situations, take into consideration what the family's going through, use that network of community stakeholders to wrap around and lift up that family to get out of the circumstances that they're in. And, so the message to communities is not, DCF has a new commissioner who says she wants to do this. It's the message to the communities are, DCF has a new commissioner, and I see it in her staff that people feel good about what they're doing and they're genuinely here to help.
And so the same question for staff, that's what you want. You want the public to actually experience the changes, because words, like you said, they need to be authentic, but it's the action. What message would you give to our social workers who will be watching and will be seeing this this video after about, what message do you want to give to your staff? So
the groundswell of support has been absolutely humbling, overwhelming, and enormous. People are super excited, and it's not for Vannessa. It's the fact that somebody is sitting in this seat who's walked in their shoes. And I want to be able to tell our story our way, but I also want to give voice to the late nights, the early mornings, the range of emotions that our staff experience. And I also want them to know that if we believe this is the type of leadership this department needs, we have to show it. We have to show up. We have to get past some of the things things that have shackled us to not be able to do this work in a way that brought us to the profession to begin with. And, you know, I want them to know that they have permission to do that. You know, the other thing that I take super pride in is the fact that I'm the first African-American female to lead this department, first African-American person to lead this department. And first means that there needs to be a second and third. And, you know, when you lead something, you have to have somebody following. And so I want there to be somebody who's starting at 22 years old, somebody who is, like I have daughters who are just getting out of high school, thinking about what they want to do with their lives. I want to be the example that they can see that I can do this too. But it starts with that, you know, that pride from, you know, why we do this and why we come to this work.
Sure. We hear you talking a lot about families and communities and how they interrelate with one another. What do you mean by that, and why do you feel that that is so important? So
children thrive in resilient families. You know, families that go through adversity don't have to be defined by that. And you know what I mean by that is that when communities lean in and lift up families, and providers can work with the department to be able to create those safety nets to help families out of whatever circumstances they are, communities are stronger. You know, this governor is trying to create a Connecticut that people want to raise their families in, families to move back to Connecticut or to feel safe here. And so when he gave me a call to, you know, I can't even think about the enormity of sitting in the commissioner seat without smiling because, like I said, I wasn't thinking about this role. But when he called me and said, you know, this is what I see as the vision for Connecticut, it resonated with me. And I couldn't sit back and not be a part of that. You know, if not me, then who? And, you know, could I help move that vision forward? And I felt that this is the right time, it's the right moment, and the department is right for it.
What's your biggest fear about having taken that first leap, the first conversation you had that you said, yeah, I will consider this?
That I can't live up to the expectations of our staff. Because, you know, every day that they come to work, they want to make sure that they're doing a good job. And their leader has to instill confidence in them in that. And so one of my biggest fears initially was that. I will tell you that that fear abated a bit when, during the press conference that announced my nomination, I looked to the back door and there was a young woman standing there who was a child on my first caseload. And when I saw her, it gave me pause. And I talked to her after the press conference, and, you know, we talked about the fact that, you know, when she was on my caseload, I was 22, 23, just figuring it out. She was just figuring out life, and there were circumstances of adversity that brought her family to us. And, you know, because they were struggling at that time, she needed that sounding board, and we were figuring it out together. And so, as we talked that day, she said, you know, I wanted to be here to let people know what you meant to me. And I said to her, it's what you brought to me that brings us to this job every day, and to make us feel that we do have purpose and that we do it from a place of having a lasting impact on kids. And she was able to be successful. At the time, I remember she came out to me, and we did not have a protocol working with LGBTQ youth at the time. And again, we figured it out together. And now she is successfully married, and she and her wife are raising a son together. And I look at those times of the little scared little girl who was on my caseload and sitting in my car, and us not knowing what was going to happen or what was going to come next. But I knew that I had to make those plans with her and thinking about her future. And when I look at her now, and I look at the role that I'm sitting in, all of that has been the building blocks to kind of help me lead this department in a way that comes from a place of integrity.
Seeing her in the back of that room at your press conference must have been very emotional for you.
Very much so.
It must have, I mean, it kind of solidifies your decision and your choice and where you're going, because you have impacted so many children and families and our staff. As we're getting ready to close this segment of Doors to Hope and Healing, when you look off to the next several years, change is scary for all of us, for the staff and you know, for the community as well, although I definitely feel a huge sense of excitement about what's to come. Could you give us a little bit of an idea about your goal, where you see us being in a couple of years as an agency? So,
you know, as I reflect on Social Work Month, social work is who I am and not what I do. So hopefully the social worker in who I am can lead an agency that is self-aware, understands that the person in the professional brings with it our own worldview and our decision making when it comes to balancing inequities and reducing disparities. Social workers challenge injustice. Social workers are the voice for people who have been oppressed and marginalized, sometimes by systems that are well-meaning. Social workers are change agents, and that even though change is hard, sometimes it's necessary to undergo and to overcome adversity. And so, you know, the system itself evolves. I've been through 6 commissioners myself, and we've needed a different leader at different times. And so when I look back at 2019, was this selection the right one? Am I the right leader at this time for this department? I can only do what I know how to do, and that's be my authentic self as a social worker to help the other multiple disciplines within our department be their true selves, bring all of those functions together to help the kids and families that come in contact with us, whether it's in our area offices, again, whether if it's in our facilities, and it's putting a face to the helper that Mr. Rogers talks about.
Well, I think you're perfectly placed exactly where you're meant to be, and I look forward to your leadership.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us today on
This is
Doors to
great.
Hope. Yeah, went by fast.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching Doors to Hope and Healing and joining our conversation with Commissioner Vannessa Dorantes. Our commissioner is a true warrior and our fierce and committed leader. Humble beyond words, she rose the ranks and held every position on the social work continuum from social worker trainee, investigator, supervisor, program manager, regional director, and today she is exactly where she's meant to be. Ready and prepared to lead an army of social workers who work tirelessly for Connecticut children and families. I would like to leave you with a quote from Commissioner. I've always approached this work from children do well in resilient families, and those families do well with communities who wrap around them. My childhood felt like one big community. On behalf of this community of the Department of Children and Families, we wrap our support around her leadership and her vision. Thank you for watching.
Hi guys, as your new commissioner, I'd like to share a bit about our purposeful pride in the work that we do every day related to our practice and the people, you and I, who get this work done on a day-to-day basis. The how is written in our strategies, how we develop strategies and goals that work together to speak to our vision and values of this department. The aspiring vision that we have centers around partnering with communities, empowering families to develop resilient children who thrive. Are you ready to come along with me on our journey? I see us working together towards this vision by focusing on 5 big, bold strategic goals. First, we will work to keep children safe, with a focus on the most vulnerable populations to ensure we are sensitive to their unique needs and challenges. Second, I want to engage you, our workforce, through an organizational culture of mutual support and learning. Third, we will work to achieve timely permanency by connecting systems and processes, finding ways to work smarter and partner more effectively to make change happen. Fourth, our contribution to child and family well-being will be focused on enhancing both our assessments and interventions, taking a more holistic and needs-based approach to children and families that we serve. Fifth, we will recognize the disproportionality that exists across society and the child welfare system. To challenge this injustice, we will work to eliminate racial and ethnic disparate outcomes within our department. These strategic goals will help us to focus our attention, effort, and resources as an agency so that we are all rowing in the same direction. Over the coming months, I'm looking forward to engaging directly with you. Our strategy is about what we aim to do, and it's just as important to me to set a standard for how we do it to achieve our goals. With all of you, I aim to lead this department with purpose, pride, and passion for practice and people. I want to share with you what this means through the voices of some of our staff.
I work with purpose. I believe in this agency's vision, and I know how I contribute to it.
I work with pride, and so I advocate for the good work we do.
I work with passion. I see this line of work as more than a job, I see it as a calling.
I prioritize practice. I deliver high quality in what I do. I prioritize people. I see the humanity in everyone and work to bring out the best in my colleagues and the families and children I serve.
Sincerely, thank you to each and every one of you for your dedicated service to the department. I look forward to continuing our work together, and I look forward to the conversations that we will have to better serve children, families, and communities across Connecticut. Let's go.